Okay, I could hear everything good enough. I think you'll be able to hear everything good enough on my camera without my ear pods. But anyway, I still went ahead and put these on just to make sure you could hear me good. So, all right, let's begin. I told you what I want you to do first is I just want you to copy the whole test down. So let me see how much you can see first. Check and see. Okay, right to here. Yes, okay. All right. Pause the video now and copy this. Okay, I'm assuming you copied that. Now, let me show you the rest of this page. Or let me just slide it and do it this way. Let's see. Wait till I tell you to pause the video. Okay, pause the video now and copy this. Okay, I'm assuming that you've copied that. So we're going to keep going. Okay, pause the video now and copy this. Okay. Pause the video now and copy this. Okay. Just a second. Okay. Pause the video now and copy this. Okay. Pause the video now and copy this. Pause the video now. Okay. Pause the video now. Okay. Pause the video now. Pause the video now. Copy this. Almost finished. Two more. Pause the video now and copy this. And last, pause the video now and copy this. Okay, I'm sorry, one more page. I'm sorry, I was wrong. One more page. Those are stuck together. Last page. Pause the video now. Okay. Now, what I want to do with you is I want to go back through each of these problems and show you how the instructions will read and show you what the problem will look like. And then I will explain these problems as we go through. And you can just kind of sit back now and watch where this comes from. Most of this is pretty straightforward, but anyway. Okay. So here we go. This is what your first set of instructions on your final exam will say. It will say, use the rules of exponents to simplify. And remember, whenever you simplify these, your final answer should have no letter listed more than once, and you shouldn't have any negative exponents in your final answer. As a matter of fact, I think I say that on the test. I'll say, write answers using only positive exponents. Okay, so let's look at this first one. First of all, by definition, remember anything raised to the 0 power is 1. That's just the definition. So the answer to that one is 1. Okay, this next one, be careful. Negative 7 to the 0. Right here, this 0 power only applies to the 7, not the negative. That's why the negative is in your answer. Now, if I had put negative 7 in parentheses like this, the answer would be positive 1. But since that negative is not in the parentheses, it stays in the problem. Same thing here, 3x to the 0. That 0 power only applies to the x, not the 3. So you do this first, which is 1, and then 1 times 3 is 3. All right, remember what you do to a base raised to a negative power? You flip it, and then I told you we will always multiply our numbers all the way out. And 1 over 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. 5x to the negative 4. You flip it, but here, the negative 4 power applies only to the x, not to the 5. That 5 has a 1 exponent. So when you rewrite that, that's what it looks like. This is a b right here. So on this next one, 7a to the negative 3, b to the negative 2. Both of these have negative exponents, so you flip both. All right, this next one, you're just multiplying these 3 terms times these. This is not distributive property. There's no adding and subtracting here. So 2 times 3 is 6. x3 times x4, you add exponents using the product rule is x7. y2, y10 is y12. Now on this one, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my negative exponents. So I'm going to leave the 10 and the y7 and the 5 and the y2. I'm going to leave them where they're at. But this has a negative exponent, so I'm going to take it to the bottom. This has a negative exponent, so I'm going to carry it to the top. When I do, that's what I get. So I brought this one to the top, this one to the bottom. The order you put them in doesn't matter. And then 5 goes into 10, 2. x2 and x3, remember if there's more on the bottom, 2 and 3, it leaves 1 on the bottom. And then y2, y7 leaves y5, subtracting exponents in the top. Okay, and then this last one, you have to use the power rule. And remember the way you do this is, if you have a power outside of a parentheses, you multiply this exponent times all of the inside exponents. You can do that as long as you are multiplying and dividing in here. So notice there's no adding and subtracting going on in this parentheses. So I'm going to multiply this exponent times negative 5, this exponent times 2, this exponent times negative 3, and this exponent times understood 1. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 3 is 6. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. And negative 2 times negative 5 is 10. So negative 2, negative 5, 10. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 2, negative 3 is plus 6. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Now, move everything that has a negative exponent. So I'm going to bring this one to the bottom, this one to the bottom. I'm not going to mess with this one or this one. When I do that, 2 to the negative 2 comes to the bottom. X6 stays there. Y to the negative 4 comes to the bottom. Z10 stays in the bottom. Order doesn't matter. If you put the Z10 in front of the Y4, it's the same thing. And as I said, we will multiply our numbers out. 2 times 2, which is 4. So this is the final answer. Notice that there's no negative exponents in my final answer. Okay, the next problem says I want you to add what's in here with what's in here. Now, normally what we do is what's in parentheses first, but you can't add these together. You can't add these together. So, I'm going to get rid of these grouping symbols. Now, how do we get rid of grouping symbols? You get rid of grouping symbols by multiplying by the number that's in front of that grouping symbol. What's in front of this grouping symbol right here is a 1. What's in front of this grouping symbol is a 1. So really, all you've got to do in this one is add the like terms together. 7x squared, made a mistake here. 7x squared plus 1x squared is 8. Make sure you change that. X squared. And then negative 6x plus 1x is negative 5x. And 9 minus 11 is minus 2. So all I'm doing there is combining like terms. And remember, when you're combining or when you're adding and subtracting apples and apples, you get apples. So when you're adding and subtracting x squares with x squares, you get x squares. Now, this next one we're not adding. We're subtracting this minus this. Now, here's where this one is different. This minus is in front of this grouping symbol, which means multiplying. We call it distributive property. Multiplying comes before adding and subtracting. So you have to distribute with this negative 1 first. You can't combine them here like you can up here. So I'm going to, there's an understood 1 here, so that won't change anything. But negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. Negative 1 times negative 8 is plus 8x. Negative 1 times negative 3 is plus 3. Now add your like terms together. 3x minus 4x is negative 1x. 6x plus 8x is plus 14x. And negative 4 plus 3 is minus 1. So here I added 2 polynomials. Here I subtracted 2 polynomials. Now I don't have to say add or subtract. The fact that big old plus sign is right there and that minus sign is in between them automatically means subtract. Same thing in this next one. I don't have to say multiply here. And the reason is this. Listen to it when I read it. 5x times. So you're multiplying. This one term times all 3 of these. We call that distributive property. 5x times 2x squared is 10x cubed, adding exponents. Then 5x times negative 3x is negative 15x squared, adding exponents. And then 5x times negative 5 is negative 25x. All right, now we're going to take 3x plus 2 times 5x minus 1. A binomial times a binomial. We give this a special name. It's called the FOIL method. A binomial times a binomial. So you take this first term and multiply it times both of these, and this term times both of these. So if I multiply the first 2 together, I get 15x squared. If I multiply the outside 2, this one times this one, you get negative 3x. Multiply the inside 2, this one times this one, you get 10x. And then this one times this one is minus 2. Then I can combine these 2 terms because they're like terms. So negative 3x plus 10x is plus 7x. Now, on this next one, I showed you a shortcut on how to do this. I told you anytime you're multiplying two binomials and one's a plus and one's a minus, and they're the same binomial, what happens is the middle two terms adds out. So you don't have to go through the whole FOIL method here. A quick way to do this one is just simply the first times the first and the last times the last. The F and the L part. There's no need in doing the O and the I because they're going to cancel out. So if I do it the shortcut way, I get that. Now you say, Mr. Under, what if I get on test and I forget to do that shortcut? Can you still do the FOIL method? Yes. You get 9x squared minus 21x plus 21x, and the 21x's add out, and then minus 49. So you're still going to end up with 9x squared minus 49. Either way. Okay, this next one. This is a binomial squared. Let me first of all remind you of what we said. When you square a bi, you get a what? Tri. When you square 2, you get 3 terms. Now, you can do this one of 2 ways. Well, let me first say what you can't do. You can't just square this and square that. So the answer is not 4x squared plus 9. You can't do that individually. You said, well, we did it a while ago. We did, but there was no adding or subtracting in this parentheses. That completely changes this when that's the case. All right, so how do I square this binomial? Well, you can do it the shortcut way. Let me remind you of that. What you do is you square the first term. What's 2x times 2x? 4x squared. Now square the last term. 3 squared is plus 9. Now multiply these two together, which is 6x, and double it, which is 12x. Now, there's a good chance that a lot of you don't remember that. So, what else could I do then? What does it mean to square something? It means to say it times itself. So, what you could do is write it out twice and do the FOIL method. If you do, it will give you the exact same answer. Okay? Let's do this one. 3x plus 1 binomial times a trinomial. So I'm going to start out 3x times 2x squared is 6x cubed. Then 3x times negative x is negative 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 is negative 9x. All right, you're done with that. Now multiply this one times these 3. Negative 1 times 2x squared is negative 2x squared. Negative 1 times negative x is plus x. And negative 1 times negative 3 would be plus 3. Collect my like terms, 6x cubed. And then this would be negative 3 minus 2 would be negative 5x squared. Then negative 9x plus 1x is negative 8x. And then bring down the plus 3. We call that writing the answer in descending order. Okay, so that's adding, subtracting, and multiplying polynomials. Now let's talk about dividing polynomials. When we covered dividing polynomials, I told you there's 2 kinds of polynomials you need to know how to divide. One is where you're told to divide. One is where you're told to divide by a monomial. Now, if you divide 2 or more terms by a monomial, all you do is divide this one term into all 3 of these. Now I told you, don't try to do that in your head. I said literally break it up into its parts. So do this one divided by this, minus this one divided by that, minus this one divided by that. Now reduce each one as much as you can. Well, 5 into 15 leaves 3. A2 into A3 leaves A1. And then A2 into A2 cancels, but it leaves 7 over 5. And then 5 into 10 leaves 2, but the A1 cancels with the A2 and leaves the A1 on the bottom because there's more on the bottom. So that's the first type of dividing we did. Starting in the next video, we will start with another type of dividing, and that type of dividing was called synthetic division.